Hi guys, so I thought I'd start by actually getting some reviews under my belt on this channel. I am awful at doing reviews and kind of avoid them a little bit, but I'm going to sort of start actually reviewing books because I've read so many great books recently and just going to share my thoughts with you guys. So today I will be reviewing A Thousand Splendid Suns by A. I read this back in sort of late February and oh my word, was it amazing. It was one of the most fantastic reads of my year so far. First of all, this cover is fantastic, and it's just a shame it's not my book, it's my granddad's, and I will have to give it back eventually after I film this review. There will be spoilers, but I will let you guys know when the spoilers hit if you want to read this book. This book essentially is set in Afghanistan with the Taliban, and that for me is a really interesting concept. Growing up sort of with the Afghanistan war and Iraq and everything in Britain, for me in Britain, it's always sort of on our minds. Press and culture and media really do keep this at the forefront of news a lot of the time, so it's really interesting to sort of see it from a different, fresh perspective, which is fantastic. Essentially, the book is told through two different narrative perspectives. First is Miriam. Miriam at the start of the book is about a 15-year-old girl, and she lives with her mother. She is like an illegitimate daughter of this amazing, fantastic guy, and she only ever wants to be loved by him, and it's really, really sort of sad introduction to the story, but it really sort of puts into everyday connotations that actually here in the UK that happens too, and you know, family dynamics are the same still. It then spans 2 decades later. Miriam befriends a local teenager, Layla. Layla is a strong, independent woman who's had a fantastic sort of life, and in my opinion, she's had a lot better sort of childhood than Miriam's, and they befriend each other, and it's a very weird befriendship. So they kind of befriend each other because of this relationship that Miriam has with Rashid. At the age of 15, she's sent off into a forced marriage with Rashid, and I'm not a big fan of forced marriages, that's just me in my opinion, but Rashid is vile. He's a vile character, and I hate him, and but I think the actual dynamic between the three characters is fantastic to sort of read and witness, and I cried at several points in this book. I am currently reading A Mountain Echoed, and I've cried a few times already in that as well, and it's just a crying. But yeah, I really would recommend this book, especially if you haven't read The Kite Runner. Alice Husseini is the author of The Kite Runner, and it's this really well proclaimed novel, and I haven't read it, and I launched into this and not knowing what to expect, and I think that was great. My granddad already read The Kite Runner, so he has a little bit of, he had a high bar of expectation. I didn't, and I loved it. It's fantastic. So that's where the sort of general review ends, guys, and now there are going to be many more spoilers, so yeah. Right, spoilers. Miriam, where to begin? I think the first time I cried was when Miriam's mother hung herself. Miriam spent all day sitting on her father's doorstep waiting for him. It was her birthday, and her father would not come out, and he sort of had people lying saying he wasn't there, and then Miriam comes back to her house, and her mother's actually hung herself in this tree in the garden, and after that I think Miriam kind of thought her dad might take her in and look after her because she's an illegitimate daughter and her dad already has 3 wives, but that didn't happen. Instead, Miriam gets sent off to, I think it's Kabul, to marry Rashid. Now Rashid is about 20 or so years older than her, and it really is heart-wrenching reading some of these sort of sex scenes and the pressures that she has as a young woman, and it was very earth-shattering. Your perspective then changes to Layla, that of a teenager, and her growing up, and she has this great, amazing friend Tariq, and I love Tariq in it. He's just lovable, and he's just a joyful character to read about. Anyway, the war in Kabul gets worse and worse and worse, and Tariq and his family decide to move away. Layla stays with her mother, who is sort of comatose by the loss of a child. Layla and Miriam at this point are just neighbours, and they just sort of know each other as acquaintances. And then Layla's house gets bombed, and when the house becomes bombed, Layla is the only survivor, and she's taken in under the wing of Miriam and Rashid. Miriam at this point hadn't born any children to Rashid, and this is greatly frustrating for him, but I can kind of see why it hasn't happened. Then Layla comes in and he decides to marry her and have 2 wives. Now Miriam's not happy about this. She's never liked Rissy, but she doesn't like the idea of having another woman around the house. You forget now Miriam is like a 35-year-old woman and she has a strong set of ways and opinions. Layla then gives birth to 2 children, spanning a few years. But I kind of think this horrible thing happens to Layla where she's told that Tariq, he's kind of like a love interest. He dies in an explosion, and this is a forced live origin. It's just horrible and nerve-wracking, and I hate it. And I believed it so much at the time, and then 100 or so pages later, you find out that didn't happen, and you're really hurt by it, like on Layla's behalf. And then she sees Tariq one day, and like the joy and elation that you experience at that moment as a reader is fantastic. What else to say? The ending was very, very bittersweet and very, very melancholy. Miriam unfortunately dies at the end. She gets beheaded, I think, because it didn't actually, but she gets executed because she kills Rashid, and that to me was just, he had it coming, and I'm so glad she did it. I'm so glad. And she was strong and sophisticated in her death, and I think that shows in her character. And then you have kind of Layla and Tariq sort of having this happy ending, almost. And I just think, but Miriam, I loved Miriam. It took me ages to actually like Layla in the book. But yeah, I loved Miriam. These are just some random sort of snippets of thoughts, because I did read this over nearly 2 months ago now. If you guys have any thoughts on it or opposing opinions to me, that'd be great, and we can have a discussion. But I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on my Goodreads, and I loved it, and I'd read it all over again. So bye guys, bye.